Hi, for this video what I want to do is talk to you about whether you should use a t-test for the mean or a z-test for the mean. For both of these tests, somewhere in the problem it does have to state that you are doing a test for the mean. So it does have to state somewhere in there that you have a sample mean and that you are trying to do a test about a claim for the population mean. Okay, so the first box right here is where you're going to start. Both of these conditions have to be true in either to use either the t-test or the z-test. So the first thing you want to ask yourself, is your sample size greater than or equal to 30? Or does it come from a normally distributed population? One of those two conditions must be true in order to move on. If the answer to either of those is no, then you cannot continue. You also should have a randomly selected sample. So the sample should have been use some kind of random selection. If the answer to these questions right here is no, then you cannot use either the t-test or the z-test. So you would not be able to continue with those and you would have to use some other method. If the answer to these questions is yes, then you're going to ask yourself, what type of standard deviation do I have? I have to have some type of standard deviation for both the t-test and the z-test. So you need to look at what type of standard deviation you have. If you have population standard deviation, then you're going to use the z-test. So the z-test goes with population, just like in the z-intervals. If you know the sample standard deviation, and this one is used way more often in the real world, because most of the time if we don't know the population mean, we're not going to know the population standard deviation. So the t-test is going to be used a lot more often in the real world. So if you have the sample standard deviation, so if it says sample standard deviation, or you just have your data and you don't know anything about the standard deviation, then you can only find the sample standard deviation and you would use the t-test for the mean. So the first conditions have to be met for both of them, and then after that you're going to ask yourself, what kind of standard deviation do I have? If I have population standard deviation, go with the z-test. If you have the sample standard deviation, go with the t-test. As always, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. If there are additional topics you would like me to cover, please let me know that as well.